Yeah, hi guys. A very warm welcome to you once again. And this time I'm going to take up one of your questions where you actually have asked me that how to concatenate the columns. Every time you want to concatenate, you want to actually pick two columns and you want to go to the till the last column. So by default, your code should pick uh, the pair of actually the columns, right? So this is what we want to do. So let me explain you. First of all, we must be clear about our requirement. So there we go. So basically you are saying that first I want to go and pick these two columns from here. Okay, I want to go and concatenate them. Then you said that then your M code should be able to concatenate these two, and then it should be able to concatenate these two. So basically this is your requirement, right? Now please pay attention here. There are two things I want to say. First thing that, of course, for this particular the task, which is very simple, many of you may say that why we are interested in making it a complex code. I mean, what is the need to use the M code? Okay, because we can simply go and concatenate them using the Power Query feature. Here we will unleash the power of list generate once again. Right, you already know the list generate function, so I'm just going to show you the use of the list generate once again, another practical example. And along with this, I will also give you the knowledge. I will also share the two or three more amazing functions, right? Like table to list, table to column, table from columns, and the list zip, which is my personal favorite, list zip, which is going to help us in concatenating. Okay, so this is going to give you a great knowledge. Maybe you don't want to use this in your project, fine, but take the idea from here and implement it in your day-to-day office projects. This is my perspective, right? So let us now begin this project. So as a first step, what we are interested in is that we want to go and extract all these columns one by one, single column, right? This column and then this column, and then, same way the another column. Why I want to go and extract them? I'm going to give you the idea before we start doing this. See, basically the thing is that if you go and extract this, which means I basically want to go and create a list of these all values. So here, what will happen, suppose you have the list here, and now the list has all those values, the same values. Like here you will have the Deepak, and then here you have Jason, then you have here Jamie, and then Carrie, right? And same way, then there is another value, there is another list which we are going to create, and this is actually the last name, right? So here again, you will have Agarwal, and then the junior, and then Anderson, and then so on. So it means that the number of columns we have here, the number of list we want to create. Now, first thing, how we can create the list, and the important thing is that why we are doing this. I mean, why we have to create the list, right? What is the reason for me to go and create the list from this? Okay, so you see, the thing is that here your values will start flowing. Okay, I'm now explaining you why actually we are doing this, right? So here you will have all the values, for example, and here these values will go, correct or not, right? So all the values will go and flow in here automatically, and you just need to apply a function, right? But why we are doing it? Please understand now. See, basically, once you have converted them into a list has some powerful functions, the features which can help us in concatenating. You all know that whatever the value you have here, that value will always have a zero index. And then here the value will have a one index, and then here the value will have a second index, and here the value has a third index, and so on, right? So all these lists will have these indexes, correct or not, for their respective values. Now, once we have actually converted them into a list like this, the next step will be actually to simply go and say that, hey, I want this and this to be concatenated, and this and this. So there will be another list which is going to come from the working system, where again, you will have the values. Are you getting the point, right? So point is that because you need the pair. So first, this pair should be concatenated. You know that here we will have a Deepak, which is this value, and here we will have a Agarwal. So how Deepak and Agarwal can be concatenated? There we will use the list zip function. This is what the zip function does. And here you know that there is an in, and here you have the other value which is called yes, and then here another yes. Okay, so these two again will be concatenated. This is how the list actually zip function works. It starts concatenating all the indexes. it starts concatenating. Basically, it is going to actually merge all these zero indexes into a one list, right? So then you will have here another list which will have all the zero indexes here. So this zero index will go here. Let me re-explain. So the zero index will here, and before concatenation, I mean, that is something we will do in the list generate function. So all the zero indexes will be here. Are you getting the point? And then there will be another list which list zip function will create, and there all the indexes which has one index from the different list, they will go and here. Okay, pardon me for my drawing because this is just a part of explanation, and it has nothing to do with the technical thing. Okay, but I just want to clear the things. So this is how we actually want to go and concatenate all the zero indexes, all the one indexes, and two indexes. After all, we want to combine the things. Okay, now let us go and start. So the first thing is that if you remember what we said that we want to go and convert them into a the list. So click here and start the function. So we will simply go and say that we actually want to go and use the table to column function. Table to column function. Table to column function, what it does, it basically checks all the columns of the table and it go and convert them into a list. Wow, this is fantastic. So if you see here, we are able to create a list, and this list has the first column, right? And if you go to the second one, you find the second list. And this is what exactly we discussed previously, right? Now, the next step actually is to go and combine this Agarwal with the previous list with the Deepak, because Deepak, Agarwal, and then of course the other value M, and then the next value which is yes, and then the next value which is graduation, and the next value which is ABC, right? They are all at the zero index. We want to go and combine them. We want to create a list which should show all these values, and same for the other indexes. So how we are going to do it? Here comes the another function, right? Now before I do that, I think it's better that we should give them a good name. So I'm simply going to say that creating lists from table. Okay, this way it is going to help you also when you're going to revise this. So I'll go and click on this now. Pay attention. This is the most interesting and the most powerful formula of this entire the exercise. Yeah, and it's very easy. List zip. So whenever you want to actually zip the things, whenever you want to combine the things, please use the list zip function. You just need to go and provide here the list. Please remember the data type is the list. It means that it is only going to work on the list, and that is why we have actually converted every column, in fact a table, into a list, so that we can use this. Because when you apply the function, I told you, you always have to make sure that when you're applying the formula, the data type of the parameter is what. Based on that, you have to decide the output on which you are working, what it is going to give you, and exactly is that data type I will be needing it. Is it a list data type? Is it a table data type? Is it a string data type? Or is it maybe a record? I don't know. So we always need to check these things. So the moment I press enter, now you see that we have here now the 5 list. So why the 5 list? Because actually, if you see in the first list, we have all the zero indexes here. So there are 5 rows in our table, right? There are 5 rows. So it means that now if I go and combine all these first row values into one list, if I put them into one list, there will be a one list, and the second list, and the third list, and the fourth and 5. So there are actually now the 5 lists which are created, right? So now if I show you here, this is what exactly we wanted it. See that we have here the Deepak, and then Agarwal, and the in and yes, right? Now, what is our next job? The job actually is to finally now we will start the list generate function, and we will go and concatenate these two. And then we will go and concatenate these two. And now we will go and concatenate these two, right? Because now we have the right data with us. And we want to go and now see that, okay, so this is the 0 index as I said, and this is the first index, and this is the 2 index. This is that's why I said that why we are actually using the list, because in the list we have the indexes, and all these indexes, we can go and make the best use of it. So here we have actually all these lists as index, and in the list generate, we can create the loops. So we will actually say that, okay, so let's say I'm just giving you now the idea for the next, the final part. we will initialize our variable, let's say with the 0, right? And we will say that, okay, so x is going to be incremented by 1, x equals to x plus 1. And we will run the condition, which is that x should be, x should be, how many indexes we have here? This is 1, this is 2, 3, if you take it as a pair, right? So we will say that, okay, in the counterpart, if you remember in the list generate, that, you have to go and run this loop till the time you're not less than 3, right? So every time the loop runs, we will set up our variables using the functions where the concatenation will happen. And in the first loop, this is going to be picked up 0 and 1, right? So we have the 0, we have the 1. Then our variable will be incremented again by 2, because once it is 0, then it has to be the 2. And then the next one is the 3. So then 2 and 3 we will pick. And same way, then from the 2, it is going to be 4 and the 5. And we will also create the code dynamic that in future, if we have more values, it should be concatenated. I hope this is clear, right? So if you go and see this list, you see we have all the second row values here. We have got them combined, right? Again, I'm repeating, this question might be troubling you, that why we have used all these functions, because you see here I cannot go and run the loop. I don't have the indexes like 0, 1, and 2, and 3. This is the feature which the list holds. And I want to go and use that feature, right? I want to use that. I want to make it workable in my favor. Okay? So that's why we created the list here, which now holds the every row where the concatenation will happen. Now the next step for us is to actually add a column. We want to add a column which is going to concatenate these all values, isn't it? This is now the target. We want to concatenate first 2 values and then other 2 values and other 2 values. So this means that we have to go and use the add column, and we should go and by using the custom column feature, we should have a new column here, right? But now you see, I don't have that option available here. It's not there. Why? Because in the list, there are some features which are not available. For example, if you want to add a column, you first have to convert this list into a table, back into table, right? So what we're going to do is, we are simply going to click on the transform, and I'm going to say to table. And you will see, don't do anything here, just simply say okay. And now you can see that we have got this, a table. This is converted into a table. You can also go and see the picture, the image of this as well. This is a table, right? And if you are thinking that, so what this would have done to the values? Well, there is no change in the values. You see that there are no changes. Everything remains the same. You still have a list here, but now this is under the table, which has a column name as column 1. If you want, you can change this name to something else, but it's not really important. So I will not go and do any changes. Okay. So under the column 1, in the step called converted to table, we have got all these, the list. Okay. And why we have done this, why we have converted this, as I said, that now you can use this custom column. Now I will definitely go slow here. I will like to cover each and every point, every minute detail, because, this really needs to get into your head, right? If I simply go and, do the hush, I just go and really don't emphasize on each and every point, I think many of you may not be able to understand the logic and the fundamentals. So let's go very slow here. Okay. You can always increase the speed of the video in case if you think you are already an expert in list generate function. Now you see, the moment I say custom column, basically here we will go and write, what we want to do here. Here we want to go and pick these values here, isn't it? But right now I'm just going to write here something called AB, for example. I will go and put this in the double quote, just to make sure that you can actually see that what is going to happen, right? This is how the add column works. So at every point, we will have these values, isn't it? At every point, we have these values. And by chance, what happens, guys, if I try to put more values here? For example, I put here J, and then I put here K. I'm just asking, I'm just asking you guys that what is going to happen? what do you think what will happen? See, I have converted this into a list by writing the curly brackets, right? Again, you will get the output, isn't it? But then the output will be converted into a list because you can't show all these values like, these single values, AB and AB, which I can see here easily, right? So if I press enter, now this is how the things will go. So my point is very clear that when you add the column, it all depends upon the project requirement. You can add whatever you want. You want to go and add list, you want to go and add a table, you want to add some fixed value, constant value, right? Everything is possible, isn't it? Right? So anyways, so now the thing is that, so I'm just going to write here, let's say AB. Okay. Now, after this particular step, now I will go to the view and the advanced editor. And this is where I want to go now and, use this particular, the formula table.add column in a way that it should actually go and add the columns for every first two values. Are you getting the point? Right? This is why actually I, first of all, written this the very simple line, right? So when you go and add the column here, the plan is that we will go and pick these two values by using the list generate. I told you that this is actually your 0 index and this is your 1 index. And similarly, then there are another two values. And this is also, this has the second index and this has the third index. So everything, whatever we will do, we will actually go and try to do here, okay, in this custom column. Because this is the main formula. This is the main formula where we will simply go and say, look, you have to add the column. And this is the previous step. This is the step, right? Isn't it? This is the previous step. On this step, this is where I will go and say, well, you have to go and combine them, right? And that is where actually I will go and use the text combine function. This is where I will say that, okay, so we are going to actually use the text combine function. And in the text combine function, basically what you can do is you can insert the values. So the plan is very simple that we will go and by using this function, we will tell, okay, so the very first index, it should be concatenated with the second index, which means actually here it's 0 index and first index, right? Once this happens, then again, we will have a loop and then the same loop will next time, then we'll go and combine this particular value and everything remains the same. So this is the plan. So this is where actually we will go and use the text combine function. This is the important area. I hope this is clear, right? Now, how actually we are going to do this? Let's go and talk about this particular thing. Okay, so let's go to the view window of this advanced editor. Now, one thing is sure that this is the line which basically is going to do the magic. I mean, this is the line where I will go and, use here the text combine function, isn't it? So that is something we will do in a while. But first of all, what I want to do is, so added custom, I want to rename this. I prefer calling it adding column. Okay, adding the column. That's it. And then this value will go here as well. Added column. Make sense? Now, here comes the important part. Now, you see, as I said, that you need a system which can always go and take these values, right? In a first loop, when let's say our loop is, let's say, so I'm just going to say L. When the loop is going to be, 0 or 1, whatever you want to call it, right? Then it should actually go and pick these two values, right? And when your loop, the variable is equals to going to be 2, then we want at that time, this is the input that we need. Now, which particular code, which particular function can help us in, making this this line, making this workable as a loop, right? So we have to go and introduce here the list generate function. So how are we going to do it? So we will simply go and say here that we will initiate a variable. So I'm just going to write any name. Let's say p equals 2. And this is how we will go and write the list generate function, right? We have already discussed this function in a very detailed manner. And I think now we will just go and implement this function. Okay. So list generate starts from here. And I will go and put the bracket somewhere here. Okay. So this is how the list generate will work. Correct? So let me just use some space here. Now, as you know that in the list generate function, the first parameter which we have here is that parameter actually is the initial. As you can see here, initial as function. Let me show you. Let me just use this open parenthesis again. See, initial as function. Just in case, if you want me to explain this again, right, I can do that. Of course, it's not going to be that long explanation, but still, I can explain this. It's going to be a revision. Initial as function, if you remember, this is the initial values which we actually go and describe in this particular section, in this parameter. Basically, we say that, okay, so let's generate. We have 2 variables, we have 3 variables, we have 4 variables, and those variables have these values. And from this value to the next value, you have to go and keep running the code, right? So here, what we are going to do is we're going to initialize 2 variables. I want 2 variables. One is to run the loop, which will decide the criteria, which is counter, right? So I will simply go and write, first of all, you have to write this as a function because this function data type is function. This is how we write it, isn't it? I'm re-explaining all the things, right? But we have already done this. Now here, what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to declare here a variable for output, and I'm just going to keep this as blank. And then one more variable, which is counter, which is going to be equals to 0. Okay, and then we will close the bracket and we will have the comma, right? So once this is done, it means that when the list generate works, it is going to initialize 2 variables. The first one is blank and the second one is 0. I'll explain you why I'm keeping this as blank. And then, of course, this counter is 0. Now, the second parameter, you already know that it is a condition that whatever you will write in this, the third parameter, how long you're going to run this, how many times you have to run this. So we are saying, so I'm just going to press the tab key just so that, it should be clear. So this is where we will write the condition. And, condition will start with the each word, right? And in the bracket, I will write that till the time the counter is not less than equals to 3, you should go and run this, and then we will press the comma. Why I'm saying less than equals to 3? Well, this is something we will discuss later. Okay. Right now, my main focus is that I just want this to, I want this function to run 3 times. Basically, the thing is that because, as I said earlier also, that you have here one pair, which is this pair, and then second pair, and the third pair. So my planning is that each time the loop runs here, when we use the text combine function, we should be able to pick all these values. And this is where I'm actually saying that the counter should have these values less than equals to 3. Now, if you're wondering, if you are kind of confused as so what about the another list, please understand this is an add column. When the column is going to be added, obviously it is going to work the same way for the rest of the list as well. This is the concept, this is the fundamental, isn't it? So whatever the values we will have in this list, all those values will every time when this list generate or this encode script, this whatever we have written here, this is going to execute. This is going to work on each of the list which is available here, isn't it? Right? All right. So now the next thing is that the functioning part. Next as function, that this is where we will go and define that what basically we want, and this all goes in the square bracket, right? So I'm going to remove the closing square bracket and I'm going to put the square bracket somewhere here, as you can see, okay? And you see that there are no syntax errors. So till now, I hope everything is clear. So this is basically the area, this particular section from here. This is the area, guys, which actually is the execution part. Whatever we write here, that is going to execute till the time this second parameter, this condition, the counter less than equals to 3 is not going to fulfill. I mean to say that the moment the counter is 4, the loop will exit. The loop will exit, isn't it? This is how it happens, right? So now what we are going to do. Now, if, for example, now, so, and yes, and in return, what we need? We need here not the added column. We don't need this particular thing now here. We want P, right? Because P is that step, which is actually going to work here, okay? So I will simply go and first of all write here P, correct? Now, one thing which is very important, if you have seen all the list generate videos, you see, whatever we write here, these all values, or maybe I can add, if my project requirement demands, I can add here more parameters. List generate will take care of all these, will return all these values one by one in the form of a record. So you will have a record which will actually have all these values, right? But I don't want that. My most important thing which I want actually is the output variable. Why? Because this is the output that I need, right? So here in this line, I will say that, okay, so whatever the output variable, because I'm using this variable, so this generate will always focus on these variables, right? So output must be having a value, and that value will be given by this added call, isn't it? This is basically our plan. So this is what we need here, right? So this output finally, when this output, let's say right now it is AB, so this output gives this function, this line will insert the value AB into the output, and then the output, the next time when the loop runs after the blank, the output will have a value called AB, right? And then here, if you remember, there's another parameter which is a hidden parameter after the third parameter. You can see that by using the comma, isn't it? Selector. Selector means that if you are interested only in capturing or retrieving the one specific variable out of those different multiple variables, like here we have two variables. So I'm saying that list generate, I don't need the counter value because that is simply to run the loop. I don't want to track that. I do not want this value in my data, right? I just want output. So you know that then in the next line, well, you can write it as a single line as well, but I think this is how one can understand quickly and clearly, right? As an audience and as somebody who has developed this, like I can read this easily, but when you go and open this file, you can also read this. So I'm done with my all the parameters. Right? Would you like to go and revise this? That all these four parameters, right? So basically this parameter, this is the first parameter, right? This is the first parameter, correct? And then this is the second parameter, isn't it? Where we have the condition. And in the first parameter, we have the initialization. Whenever you run the loop, whether it is Python or VBA or any programming language, you know that we always go and give the variables. Using those variable values, we run the loop, isn't it? And then this becomes the third parameter, which is actually the execution where the real working is going to happen. And once the real execution takes place, finally in the fourth parameter, what exactly you want from the variables. So this actually directly connects with this once this execution happens. Because ultimately here, this is where you go and need to mention that, okay, so whatever the value we are going to calculate, which is this value actually, that value should go here. Okay, that value should go in the output. And then finally that output is going to be here. Because remember, again, I'm repeating, list generate always go and publish the values of these variables because this is what you have initialized. And if you specifically mention that I want here only the output variable, then list generate will only go and give you the values of the output variable. So you need to really be very careful here and be a planful person. Okay. So now once this is done, let's simply go and see that what is the output. See, output will still be AB, but let's see that what is going to happen. So let's first of all make sure that we understand what is going to happen here. Okay. Now here, if you see that, so the first line says the error. Now I really have no idea about this error, why this error is coming, right? Okay. So I think now I understood. See, the counter actually is 0 and the loop is not running. The loop is not running because we are not incrementing the value of the counter, right? Well, that's very funny. How can I forget this? So I'm just going to write here, how to write. So I simply go and say that, okay, so this is where the counter, because you see, you have to increment the counter value. Otherwise, the loop does not make any sense, isn't it? Because here the loop is 1. And then when you come here, the loop becomes 1. Here the counter is 0 and then it becomes 1. And then the loop again runs because the condition is satisfied. And then again, counter becomes 2 and then 3. And finally, when the 4 is going to be the value in the counter, the loop will exit. So now let's go and click done. And let's see that what is going to happen here now. Now I want to explain you again the each and everything, why there is a first space and then there is an error and then what exactly inside these tables, right? Let me click here. See, if I will go and simply edit this lecture, you will miss the real learning part, because then it is going to look like, that, okay, so this is very simple and this is the steps how I can do it. But when you are going to do it by yourself in any of your project, when you go and use this function, you can have n number of issues. And then I really don't want that you go and waste your time on the internet. Well, that I have already done it for you. Okay. So I'm going to explain, what is happening. Well, first thing is clear that, okay, so we are getting here AB, 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 isn't it? Right. And if you go here, then again, you see the same value, AB, 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 isn't it? Right. Now, the first thing so why AB is coming, I hope this is clear to everyone, because in the, this function, we are just using the AB. Correct. Now, if you are thinking that, so how come we have these 4 number of rows here? I mean, why 4? Well, you see, this is, if you remember that, if I show you here, you see that you start with 0. So this is the 0 output. When the counter is 0, what the list generate function will give you. This is exactly that, right? So when the counter is 0, the first time the output actually is black, right? Output is black. Make sense, right? When the so after this, once this happens, list generate now will never touch these. I mean, it's not going to come back here. It's going to now work in the execution part, which is this particular part here, right? So when the counter becomes 1, what happens? Well, there is some error coming, which we will see, or what is it? But the point is that here, the counter is 0, right? And here the counter is 1. And here the counter is 2. And here the counter value is 3. And the moment the 4 comes, the function stops, the function exits. So I hope I was able to answer your this doubt, in case if it was in your mind, that why we have the 4 different outputs here. Why not 5? Why not 2? If I go and put here 10, then you will see here the 10 times the output. You will see the 10 times the output, the total number of rows. Okay, this is clear? Okay. Now, the most important thing. Well, all the things are important, but I think this is, again, a very important, that why actually you're getting here the error. First of all, let's see that what it says. It says that the field added column of the record wasn't found. Added column field is not found. How come? Well, let's see that. This is the added column field. We are using it here, right? Okay, sorry. So let's remove the square brackets, because these are not the variables which we have initialized, right? This is the variable we have written here. So I'm just going to remove these square brackets, and now I will come back and see what is going to happen. Okay, let's press OK, and there we go. So now you can see here that I have got here the loop which is running 4 times, and each time it is running, it is actually producing the AB. So far I think that everything is clear, that why we're getting the space, and then why actually this is showing us the total number of rows as 4, why this is giving us the value called AB. I hope this is clear, right? See, if I simply go and say that, okay, so this is going to be KJ, for example, I click OK, the first very initial will be KJ, right? Now, as I said that, remember again one thing, because of this 4th parameter, you are only able to see the output value here. The output, what right now you are seeing is only the output. If you go and simply remove this line, because this is the optional parameter, if you go and remove this, then the things will look different. Then you will see the 2 records, basically one with the output and one with the counter. But just in case if you want to see it, you can remove and see over there. But because this is not something we want in order to achieve our this, what we actually want to achieve. So I will keep this as it is here. Okay, this is clear. Now, here comes now again the another thing which sometimes, people get confused, that, okay, so how come these, the lists are coming here, like these lists are here, and then there is another list which is here. Why? I mean, why can't we have just simple one, this particular, the value of the list with this AB? I mean, why we are actually having these lists, and what exactly is inside these lists? You see, the thing is that you have said that you need to run this loop 4 times. So when the loop runs 4 times, this entire thing, added column, this actually will be produced 4 times, or whatever, I mean, you have mentioned there, right? So this particular thing, this particular thing, this will be, going to run when the counter is 0. And then again, this particular thing will again go and run when your counter actually is 1, and then again, one more list, it's going to pick up when the counter actually becomes 2, and so on. So that is the reason that here, if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have 5 number of rows, right? 5 lists basically. So this is where what happens when you click on this, when you go inside the table, all these actually the list values which you can see, which you can count, these are all those lists which are actually repeatedly coming. I can show you. Yes, you can also go and check that. Okay, it's very important from fundamental perspective that you really understand the mechanism. If you click on this table, then you see on this table, when I click here, you can see that we have the first list, right, which is actually the first row of this table, where we have pulled out the first values of every the row. And then you see this is the second one, this is the third one, this is the fourth one, right? Now let me just go and remove this. Make sure you don't delete the P, otherwise all your efforts will go in vain, because P is where we have written the list generate. Okay, so please do remember this, and better you can create a copy of this and then do whatever you want in the duplicate field, because this happens at initial stage sometimes, right? So don't delete the P step. So if you now go in the second the table, and you like to see again, as I said, that it's same, it is the same thing. It is a repetition of those all the values, because when list generate function works, it's going to actually keep repeating all these values for in our case it's 4 times, right? Basically 3 times, but the first time it's printing the value in the output as KJ. Let me first keep this as blank. I am not interested in giving any value here. Let it be blank. Okay, I hope now this is again clear. Now the next part now in this advanced editor, which is actually again the one of the very important part, that how we can actually go and write here the values which are coming from the list one by one. Again, it's very simple, but it's very interesting. Now you see that. So first of all, what I will do, I'll just keep the cursor here so that you can see when I'm going to write the code over there. So this is basically this on this particular thing, we have to use the the loop. And how we're going to use this, if you remember, I was telling you that that we're going to actually use the text combine the function, right? So I'm just going to write here text combine, and you see in the text combine function, I can go and write the list. I can provide the list here. Remember, in the curly bracket, I said E, comma, B, comma, C, all everything in double quotes, and then you found there the list is generated with ABC, 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 right? But here, now in this particular thing, what we want to do is, we actually don't want to write the list, because the list is already there. Yes, the list is already there. So where is that list? Well, you know that under the column 1 section, this is the list I want to go and pick. So how I can do that? Well, this column 1, the name which is written here, first of all, I will simply go and write here in the square brackets column 1 field, and then in the curly brackets, I will go and write the 0 index, which actually belongs to the 0 index, which is this. And for the rest of the list also, it is the same thing. I mean, the first value. And then the next thing is that which I want to go and combine, that is what? Well, that is going to be actually your this. First of all, let's make sure that everything goes in the curly brackets. Yeah, so I have to write here the curly brackets, right? So that it should be considered as the first parameter. So here again, I will go and simply write column 1. And this time, I'm going to pick the value called the 1. I'm going to pick the value called 1. I know these are the constants, but we will go and put the variables here. Don't worry, we are going slow, but I want to make sure that you take 30 minutes more, you take 1 hour more in understanding this, the fundamentals, but let it be. Who cares? Because the next time when you're going to use this function in your own project, you will not have the problems, right? So now if I press OK, what should happen? Let's see that. So if I'm going to write this now, let's go and see the value. Look at this. You are able to concatenate the first and the second index of every list. See that. Deepak Agarwal, Jason Julia, Jamie Anderson. Of course, if you want to use the separator, you can use the comma, and because in the text combined there is a next parameter is the comma, which you saw on. So you can just go and rewind the video in case if you want to see, but I'm not going to use it because I just want to explain you. Okay, so there's no separator basically I'm using here, but you can use it. The second parameter is the separator after the curly brackets, right? So you see, I'm able to actually get the results, right? So for every list, and if you go here, you know that this is all the repetition of the list because of the counter, because of the loop. So whatever we are getting here, that exactly we need here. So from every list, they are able to actually give us this. See here, what you have. the zero index and the first index. So this is the zero index, right? This is where it goes, right? And then this is where it goes. Finally, done. And then what was the another list? Now these are the areas which we want to touch, right? Because if you remember in the text combine, we have said that the first index is 0 and the second one is 1. The second index is the 1. We are not writing there 2 or 3, and that's why the code stops. Code stops and keeps concatenating these values. This is how it is. If you go here, now you see that Jason and Julia, this is what we have here. Okay, so half of the job is done. Now, how we can actually make sure that all these lists are going to be concatenated, right? This is what exactly what we need here, right? So let me put this again, highlight this particular list for you. Okay, now I need here a variable which actually can go and increment the values one by one instead of these constants. This is where we will go and write here another variable. So I'm just going to write that variable as, let's say, R, or maybe my row, because this is the variable I prefer in my VBA programs in Python as well. So I'm going to just go and use this as my row, right? Now, what is the next thing I want to do? Obviously, you have to tell the list generate function that, look, there is another variable which I need, because that is a variable, I'm using it, right? So you have to initialize it, right? Well, if you do not want to see the my row value, well, fine, we can manage. I mean, you don't have to really, there's no compulsion for us to go and pull out those values in the real results, right? We don't want that, right? We just want the output, but the entire system, the output, how it is going to work, there actually we have to go and use the variables, isn't it? So I will initialize this as 0. Now, the first thing is that first you have to see that if this is the correct or not. Well, now again, please pay attention here. See, when the first time if I run this code right away, what is going to happen? What do you think? Well, I'll explain you this very important part. And of course, you have to go and increment the my row also, because my row cannot be 0. Otherwise, we were using the constants, isn't it? So this particular my row variable, which is coming from the initialization, I'm going to say that, okay, for the time being, let me use this as 1. But actually not 1, but 2. Why? Because you see that 1 is 0. If it becomes 0, then this particular, so when my row becomes 0, this actually should be 1, isn't it? Because here the plan is, here in this my row, when the my row is 0, when this is 0, this automatically becomes 0 plus 1, correct? So here it should be able to connect with this particular person, the value Deepak, and here it actually should be able to connect with this particular value, and same for the other list, isn't it? Right? So that's why I said that if you are 0, the next value which we are joining, which we are combining, it should be the plus 1, because that is what the index is all about, right? Now, you see, if this is 0 and this is 1, then this value actually becomes 2, and then we need to go and pick the value called 2 and 3, right? So here, if I say counter equals to 0 plus 1, basically, you know that then the 0 plus 1 will makes it what? 0 plus 1 is going to be actually 1. And if you go and run this loop, the next time, then this becomes 1 and this becomes what? 2. But then the problem will be that 1 actually is this other one, right? And the 2 actually is this n, isn't it? Right? So it actually is not going to concatenate these two, but it is going to concatenate actually one this and one this, which is wrong. So that's why instead of incrementing this as, the 1, we will go and write here 2, so that after 0, the next counter becomes 2. And then this will be 2 plus 1, which is 3. So this is how it is, okay? So that's why I have written here the 2. And let me first of all remove this comma. I hope this is clear to us, right? Now let me press done and let's see that what is going to happen. See, let's click here. Let's see that what is going to happen. Look at this now. You are able to join, but where is the first name, right? If you remember, this is what we wanted to concatenate. But right now, what you see here is that the concatenation happens, it starts with in yes. In yes. Where is in yes? These are the ones, right? This is the one. Now, why this is happening? Why this is happening? Why this is happening? And not only this, if I click here And if I just go down the line, see grad ABC. So if you come back here in your original data, it's actually now picking grad ABC, this one, this particular header. So it means it's picking actually this pair and this pair, but it's not able to pick this particular pair. And then let's come back to this line, and now let's click here and see that why this is giving it the error, right? Output is not the agenda here, guys. Fundamentals. So why this is happening, I'm going to explain you this as well. You see, this is the output when the counter actually is 0, correct? Now, after that, if you remember what you did, you said that the counter has to be incremented by 2. Now, when the counter actually becomes 0 plus 2, what is going to happen? 0 plus 2 means that it's actually going to pick this 0, 1, and 2, this particular, the value, because this is actually where the index actually is 2, right? And the next is actually 3, because you said 2 plus 1, if you remember, r plus 1, right? So that's why here the 2, actually this is 2, right? Sorry, I'm not able to write it properly, but this becomes 2 and 3, and that is why the concatenation happens. Now, after the 2, again, the value is incremented by 4, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So your variable, when it is 4, basically you are concatenating the qualification, and then 4 plus 1 is, so these are the 2 columns which are actually concatenating. So it means that nowhere the variable is used to retrieve the values from the first name and the last name, which have the indexes as 0 and 1 respectively, right? Many of you may be confused right now but we have already initialized the variable with the 0. We have already written the my row equals to 0. So how come we have not been able to concatenate the first 2 headers? Let me again repeat the fundamentals. What the fundamentals of the list generate says, guys, I told you that where the very first time when the my row will be 0, this will simply be going to be used as it's the first output, where you see that the blank. This is where you actually go and see the blank. This blank, right? This blank, because output is blank here, correct? So when your row is 0, you are getting nothing here. And this is how the list generate works. Your actually job starts when finally the next time when the function is going to run this particular area. And that is where then it's going to check that what is a my row. So when it comes to here, when the counter actually becomes 1, because the counter is here 0, actually the my row is here 2, 0 plus 2. So it means that if I have to make sure, pay attention what I'm saying, if I have to make sure that you actually go and become here 0, and then obviously the next part, this next line becomes the 0 plus 1, this 0 plus 1, we have to adjust this my row in a manner that first when it gets initialized, it actually it after initializing, when it goes here the second time, it should be 0. So for that, if I go and write a -2, what do you think what is going to happen? Because you see, for me, initialization does not, I am not looking for the initialization. I mean, I don't want to see that in my output. So it doesn't matter even if my row is -2, it's fine. But when this goes here, -2 and +2 actually becomes 0. And that is the value which we will go and try to pass in here. 0, and then this becomes 0 plus 1. And then when again the loop comes back, when the counter is going to be 2, because the condition is satisfied, this becomes 0 plus 2. And then 2 and 3, isn't it? So I have just adjusted the value of my row as -2. Let's see that now, what is going to happen. So let's click here and let's see that. Let me click here, done. And now let me click here. Wow, this is superb. You see that I've started getting here the values. And what about the next one? Oh, wow, this is again super cool. And then what about the next one? Oh, this is again amazing, right? I hope you have understood the entire point. Okay, now we will definitely go and make this also dynamic, because this can't be 3 every time. You may have more number of rows added. You see, that's very simple. Basically, once the list is generated here, right? So how many times you want to run the loop? Tell me first of all. It depends that how many columns I have divided by 2, isn't it? Divided by 2, right? So if I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it means that I want to run the loop 3 times. 3 times plus 1 also, because the first initialization as per our code actually is blank. Okay, so 4. So we can simply count that how many columns we have here. And for that, once we have created the list here, you see that we can say list.count, which gives us 6. 6 divided by 2, which makes it 3. And then 3 plus 1, which is 4. So, that is something we will do later. It's very easy. Next step is now for us actually to get rid of the unwanted values. Like I don't want actually, I simply want to extract these values here. Okay. So first of all, I don't want the blank. So if I don't want the blank, you can just go and say that I want to remove the top item. So I will say that I want to always remove the top item, because in my case, it's always going to be blank. So we don't need that, right? So finally, we have the values here, correct or not, right? Once we have these values, what we will do is that, because now we want to add the column and we want to pull these customs from here. We want to go and pull the customs from here, and let's see how it is going to happen. Because we don't need these list from here. We simply want to now go and put these these values actually in front of each other as a column. Okay, let's do this now. So first of all, I will transform this to a table so that we can add the column, right? Actually, this becomes the table, as you can see here. So now we will see that, okay, we just want to extract the custom. We need this. So let's go here in the add column. And we will say that, okay, so I'm actually interested in table select columns. And you need to provide obviously the table, which is the column 1. And in this table, we want actually the field called the custom. Okay, this is how we do it. Let's click OK. I'm just not actually changing these names. Let us click OK. So now you can see that I'm able to get all the outputs, right? These are all the outputs. Fantastic. I go and delete this. I hope till now everything is simple, right? It is simply a Power Query, the trick which we are using here. So now once you have these values, the next task is actually go and first of all put these as columns. And after the columns, then we have to go and put this in front of our output, which is actually this one, which is again very easy, right? So now what we're going to do in this case is that, you see, right now this is actually our table, right? So if I simply go and I want to show you something, there's a function. Let me write here the function, which can actually convert these type of the formats, right? Where we have one table here, one table here, one table here. You can go and put them in the columns form as well in a single data. So for that, actually, I have this particular the function which is called table from columns, right? And when I start the function, it says that provide me the list. So let's say if I provide the list as A, B, C, D, E, in curly brackets, it's going to actually create a table from that, right? But you see, this is a list parameter, right? So it means that I cannot go and use this right away. Okay, I cannot go and use this right away. So what I will do, I will just go and remove this. First of all, I'll convert these tables into a list. Okay, so I will go and say that, okay, I want to convert this to a list. And for that, I will simply use the function called table to list. And table to list will convert this into a list. And then I will use the function. Okay, so custom one, let's say. I'm going to click OK. And now you can see I've got the list. Again, output is same. Now I don't need this. I go and delete this. Now here, see all these. This is now the interesting step. I will simply go and now I will not add a column. I will just go and introduce the new step, because I don't want the previous step now at all. So I will go and say table from columns, and remember it's a list, and we have already got the list in the previous step. And now one more thing you have to understand, that still I see this as a customer. If you see the header, if you see this is still a table, though there are the list under these tables. I didn't find any shortcut. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. But I will right click on the header and I'll say drill down. Finally, when the lists are there. So I will simply say drill down, and finally you see I have the list, and now you can see this particular icon. This is also a list icon, right? So once everything is now, it's a fully executable, the list. I just go and say that, okay, so you see what I want from you is that table from columns. and I'm going to give you the list data type, which is the custom 2, which is already a data type, and I press enter and bingo. Fantastic. Wonderful. You see that? So finally, we are able to actually collect all these columns, the outputs here. This is superb, isn't it? Right? So once this is done, now then in the next step, what I'm going to do, so this is our custom 3, and I'm just going to rename this. Okay. So I'm going to say that final, I'll say that output, because this is where we have got the output, right? I mean, you can go and convert all these names one by one. So, so it's going to help you a lot, right? Like, first of all, we converted the list, and then this is where we use the, let me do this. This is where we actually use the zipping fields, right? Zipping fields, and then converted to table is fine. This is where the list generate function starts, right? P. And then I think rest all is clear what we are doing here. All right. So finally, we have the output here. Now, in the very next step, I'm going to use the change type, the value. Okay. So let's go, and I'm simply going to go and say that I want the change type step. I know you must be wondering that why I'm doing that, why I need this data. Well, see that. First of all, I go and have the data here, and this is custom 1 basically. So I'll rename this again, that this is actually raw data, for example, right? Now, once I have the raw data here, and once I have the output here, so obviously the next step for me is to add the output here. So I will go and put the output here. So I can simply go and say add column, and this is where now I say, okay, I want the output here, and then my output actually is my previous step. And now all the columns will be inserted there the way actually the M code works, right? So M code will bring its own the very same what you call on the principles on which it works, because it's a big table. So how the M code is going to do the job here is that it's going to pick all the outputs here. So here you have the first row, first row table, and this is for the second row table. You see that, right? And the third row table, isn't it? Now, what is the next step we will go and do? Again, it's very important. See, the point is that if you see the first row, Deepak Agarwal, here in every table, this value is coming. Here, everywhere, if you see, these values are coming, right? But we are interested only in this particular value, Deepak Agarwal, for this particular row. And for the second row here, in the same table, because the table is same, I want to pick this particular row, which is second row, right? And then for this Jamie Anderson, I want to pick the third row, right? So if you see overall what is happening, the indexes of these rows should be matching with the indexes of these actually the table, right? But here we don't have the index, and here also we have not created any index. I mean, these are all just a 1, 2, 3, but there's no as such a field called index. And in Power Query, we can do that very easily, isn't it? So first of all, let's create the index here. Okay, let's go back to the query here. So here where I have the output, actually, this is where I'm just going to actually add the index over here. I mean, this is the thing I want to do. So I didn't do it before, because I wanted to give you the reason actually, and I wanted to explain why we are doing it, right? So we'll just go and add the column here. So I will start with the 0, because remember the first value actually starts from 0. So we can write here the 0 as well. I think no, let's not write the 0 this time, because this is the first row. So definitely I'll simply go and say first row. Okay. I mean, I think you can use any value. I'll go with the 1. Okay. So I'll insert it. Let's see that if we are right or wrong. So I have added the index here. Okay. And finally, then you have the raw data here. So raw data also should have the index. And I'm going to add here the raw again from the 1. So one index column you have here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And one index you have actually got here in the output section. See that, right? So we just have to match this one with the one of this, actually, with the one of this. That's it. How we're going to do it. See now, so finally, when you have here the output, so this is where we have put the tables, isn't it? So you see one index is there and the other index is there. So I'm simply saying that how I can link this index with this index. This is the plan. So here also you will get this knowledge, right? So we say that, okay, so whatever the index you have here, that index, if it is anywhere here in this list, if you find that, just go and pick that particular row And that row should actually go and is going to be pasted in front of this value. And then same happens with the 2. So 2 again is going to, we're going to find this 2 here, and then it finds the 2 here, right? So the row which is 2, that this is basically this particular row, right? This is the row number 2. So finally, this row number 2 will go here. Why? Because this itself is a row number 2, isn't it? So this is how the condition is going to work. Okay. So now I think this is the last step we are doing here. Pay attention. So finally, the name of this index is index. So let me do one thing. Basically, here in the added index, I actually should write this name as, let's say this is my output index, right? So I'm just going to write here output index. I want to keep this as output index. Let's click OK. And let's come back here. So now we have one index, which is this, and the output index. So in order to pick the row, we are going to use a function which is going to help us, in selecting the row. Table select row. Well, I'll go with this function. You see that you have to write the table, and then you have to write the condition, which should be a function, right? Like for example, you say that, okay, so my table is, so where is your table? Your table actually is this, right? This is your table, isn't it? Custom is your table. Let's double click here. Now here, I can write the condition. Like for example, I can say, okay, so I need this output index as, 1. For example, this is what I want, right? So if I simply go and write here that I output index. Sorry for the internet, actually. I got disconnected. Yes, so once you get the table, the next thing is you got to write the criteria, so that based on that criteria, you can pull the data, right? So so here you need to write basically the header. For example, in the square brackets, if I suppose I say that index has to be 1, for example, this is what I want to write, right? Index, what was the header name actually? In our table, the header name was, let me see that, output index, right? So here, if I go back here and say that, okay, so this is output index, for example, this is what we have, right? So I want to pull out the record which has the output index value as 1, right? So if you see here that you find here the value output index of the record wasn't found, because when you write like this, it actually go and look here. It is going to check the value here, that header here. And here, we don't have any column, output index. So please pay attention here. I'm telling you something very important, how we can write this. You see, the thing is, if you go and, okay, so let me take you back to the specific window. You see here, this is a function parameter. You remember, it's going to ask for you the condition as function. So for that, what you always do in such cases, you go and write here the function name, first of all. And the function name, let's say for example, any name you can give. So I'm just going to write here my fx, which is my function. And this is how we write the function, right? Once you have written this, then go and use your function like this, fx. And now inside the square brackets, you can go and give your field name. Obviously, the field name has to be there in your internal table, and this is how you write it, right? Function, and then the function along with the field. Now, if I click OK, you will see the magic here. Wow, this is wonderful, super cool. You see, everywhere I have got the first row. Obviously, now we have to connect the index of this table, this output index with this, right? So we are just going to do what? We are simply going to, instead of this 1, we will simply go and say, well, you're not 1 actually, but you are this index. And for that, I'm just going to write here index, right? For the external table, there's nothing we need to worry. I mean, we can just go and write it like this. So when this is done, I'm sure this would have picked all the values based on the number of rows. So see here, we have Deepak Agarwal, we have a Jason Jr. Wow, fantastic. It's a celebration time, isn't it? Why? Not for this project. I'm again repeating, whatever we have done so far, you can use these tricks and tips or the formulas, the knowledge, in your own projects. And I have saved I spent a lot of time, on the internet before developing this solution, right? It was not an easy cakewalk. It wasn't a cakewalk for me. I spent hours, and for you, this is coming directly, right? So you can thank me later on. I mean, you can give your review that will be the biggest the gift, to me. Anyways, just kidding, Ashley. So finally we are done here, right? So you can see here I have got all the columns. Well, if you like to keep the output index, you can keep it. Otherwise, you can delete that. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this from here. Well, if you don't, even then fine. I just say okay. And finally, you see that we are able to have the output here, right? Again, repeating, many of you will have this opinion, oh, well, I can concatenate using the add column. That's easy. Well, who is learning these all things for this particular, the project? I mean, it's easy project, but what about the other things? What about the, how to transform the columns into list and how to use a zip function to concatenate the first value with the another first value with the another first value, output them all in the one list, and then list generate fundamentals, everything. I mean, and then converting the list into tables, converting the tables into a list, and then doing all those things, and especially the recent one, table select row. So we have done a lot of things over here. So we have here finally the output, right? So finally, once this output is there, obviously the next thing which I want to cross check is that what happens if I go and add more columns here, isn't it? Well, as I said that without wasting the time, because right now, in that case, your loop actually supposed to run, how many times your actually loop is supposed to run first time here, and then second time for these headers, right? And then the third time it is going to run for this, and then there has to be another 2 columns, and that loop should go there, isn't it? Well, if you have a 1 column also, in that case you can adjust the code. I mean, in that case it's just going to, I think, give you the results as it is. I haven't checked that, but you just go and see if the number of columns are not even but odd. Okay, so how are we going to do it? Well, as I said that you just need to go and count these number of columns and then divided it by 2, right? And then plus 1 because of the value, the blank. So we are going to do that. Well, you will do this in the condition where you are counting everything. So finally, so if I see here the values, so these are the lists, right? So before the zipping, these are the columns, right? So if I say this itself is a list, isn't it? So if I simply go here in the B part, and I see that, okay, so let me expand this. Let me write this here. You see what I'm going to do? I'm going to say that list count, please count how many values we have. And then you got to target the list, which is actually the creating the list, right? So I'm just going to write the creating the list from table. You see this one, and this gives me, let's say 6. So I have to divide this by 2, and then I will go and add the 1 value as well. All right, so multiplication will happen first. We all know that. So I think we will not have a problem. This one is for the initialization, the very first time where it is giving me the value of blank, right? So for the rest of the values, I think this is going to work. So let's click OK. Let's click on the tick mark basically. And now I can see the values here. So let's see that if we are in the right direction. Okay, I don't think so. We need that. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Let's click OK because we don't need that. So yeah. So it's actually here. It's actually, so we have the output here. Well, yes. Now, let's quickly go and add the columns and let's see if those columns it's able to pick or not. So I'm going to write here, let's say city. And yeah, so I think this is fine. So, and let's say, okay, fine. I save the file. I go back to the data. Okay, hope you have enjoyed this. And in the expanded column. So we're going to see that. All right. So let's go here. First of all, I've got the city and everything here. Okay. So there we go. So I don't see those values here. I guess I don't see that those values. So we don't see the output. Let's go to the last step here. I click on this icon and I think this is the one. I need to check this and just go here. Let's click OK. And now you can see the output actually is there, but because of the new field, it was not showing. So finally, you have to go here. You have to click here and that's it. All right. Now you don't need the output index. You can delete that. You don't need this table as well. You don't need all these things. So, you can go and make sure that, everything is cleared from here. And finally, the output is there. So it means the code is now working. It's actually the dynamic because it's counting the fields, right? So now the one thing and the last thing actually which we can do, which we can, make this dynamic. I know that, right? So you see here, Well, we can definitely go and say that, okay, so whatever the columns we have here, those columns, you see, this is basically a table expand column. And this is always, this always looks for the list, right? So we can check that list. I mean, we can provide these columns also by knowing that what are the final columns we have in our table, right? So for that, we have to go and check that from where exactly we can get those values, right? So if I go back to the previous step here, let's see that. So this is not this one. What about this? Well, no, actually, let's go back here. Let's go back here. No, not this one. Let's go back here. Okay, so yeah, so I think this is where we have got the output. This is where we have got the output where we have added the index also, right? So so which function we use to in case if we have to go and capture the column names, there is a function called table column names, isn't it? I hope you know that. I'll show you, don't worry. So added index is the step, right? So let's come back here. Let's come back here. And now, first of all, I'll just show you, then I'll directly use that function over there, over here in the expanded column, right? See, what I want to do is I want to say add step, and my step is added index, which is added index. I think, what was the step? I think it was added index. So we will say that we need the column names, right? We need the column names, and we need this for added index, right? So I think it was the added index. Yeah. Let's click here. Let me show you. Look at this. Wow, fantastic. So you actually are able to see the list over here, right? Now, what if I go and provide the very same list to that particular, the value to this expanded, this particular thing. This is what I'm talking about actually. Okay. So in this case now, what we're going to do is, so this is the list we have here. Let me just cut this. Okay. And let me just remove actually this particular thing. Okay. Now, what I will do, I will actually insert this step somewhere here. Okay. So before the expanded custom, we will use this, no problem. So this is where I will go and now use the next step. So after we are done with everything, we want to go and check the list. Okay. I press enter, and you see I've got the list, and custom one should be renamed. And this is get new columns, or get output underscore columns. Okay, fine. So this is now we have to go and use in this expanded step. Obviously, you have to go and link this with the added custom 3. So this is not going to work. So I'll just cut this, and I say that this is actually the added custom 3. So added custom 3 is added custom 3. Where is it? Yeah, this is, and yes, I think we are fine with this. Let's click OK. All right, so we have got the output. Now this is where I will go and delete this particular value, and we'll directly use the get output columns. Okay, so we should see the names of the columns, and then once this is there, this also, once this is going to be done, I expect that this code actually works dynamically. Okay, we should not have any challenges. So for now, you see everything is done, and finally we have removed the unwanted columns as well. So here I'll simply go and say, actually rename this to remove columns. Okay, so finally we will go and say close and load, and I'm going to add actually 2 more columns here, and then let's see what is it. So test 1 and test 2, and this is what I'm going to do. Okay, so one thing I want to tell you, that I'm not using here the numbers, just in case if you have any numeric values. In case if the error comes, you don't see the output, it means that somewhere you have to convert the data type of the numbers to a text, right? So just go and see where you can do that. Better you do this in the initial steps where Power Query checks the data, right? The transformation happens. So then you, just need to make sure that it should be converted into a text, right? Because after all, we are doing the concatenation, so it won't be a problem. So now we have to go back here. So many things are going on. So yeah, Power Query Editor. I think I have saved the data. I'm not sure, but let me just refresh the data. Okay, so I can see the data. You can see. Yeah, so you can see here that we are able to get the data ETRRR, and this was the data, right? If I take you back to the original data, yeah. So E and T and R 4 times R, yeah. Wow, super. So we have got the E and we have got the T, and then okay. So let me just scroll this here. We got the ET and RRR, and so these are the new headers. So finally, we are able to concatenate everything in this code. Please download this file. And though I try to explain you each and everything, because I wanted to make you ready for this function, not for this project, but for any of our project. But also one of the thing which I always say that list generate, because it is a recursive function. This function works like a loop. If you have a large data, this can significantly impact your speed. So please, when you use this, use it wisely. Thank you so much.